Thanks for joining us again on one of our webinars. Hopes everybody is really excited to see Stephen Kenwright from Branded 3. Hi, Stephen. Thank you for being with us tonight. It's actually quite exciting. I think the rest of you are accustomed so far. Most of our speakers for the webinars were speakers we were already interacted in one of our events, so we were actually quite familiar with each other. But Stephen has been one of the people we've been admiring from afar especially at one of the events in the UK, and then several others. So we decided to grab him, and this way he could share for you guys some of his experience. Hopefully you're going to make the most of it. Remember, as always, you can ask questions, you can raise hands in case you don't understand something or there's technical problems concerning the sound. Nonetheless, I'll see you guys at the end, and everybody enjoy. I'm going to switch back to Stephen. There you go. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, hopefully you can see slides okay. What I really wanted to talk about a little bit today, and one of the things that I find really interesting about search is even though things move extremely quickly, the year of the mobiles lasted about 5 years now, and it seems to be no end to that as well. So what I really want to talk about a little bit is actually what does that mean when we're looking at mobile SEO, when we're looking at search in general, when it comes to mobile devices. Are we just referring to a responsive website? Are we referring to mobile applications, or a combination of both? And really, where should you be investing your time and budget, basically, in order to get the best possible returns for the mobile traffic, basically, that could be coming to you? So I'm going to talk a little bit, hopefully you'll get whether a mobile app might be right for your business or not. Also whether it's a combination of a mobile app and mobile website, or just a mobile website would be enough. And if you do decide to go down the mobile app route, how you would potentially get traffic to that app. How do you get people in? How do you convert potential visitors into actual customers from a mobile application as well? So I think let's dive straight into what is a mobile app useful for compared to a mobile website. What we can actually achieve on a mobile application is significantly advanced compared to where it used to be. And it's quite strategic as well in how we would potentially do that. It's not just a case of building an app and people will come to it. There is a huge amount of work involved in actually building up an audience for a mobile application. Every bit as much work goes into that as actually that goes into your usual SEO activities. So quickly jumping back to this graph, it's quite a famous graph, as I was saying. In mobile apps compared to mobile browsers, which obviously seems really significant, and there is a bit of an anomaly in the mobile internet in apps like Facebook and Twitter and that kind of application. They don't have a choice of navigation of where they're potentially going for most of the time, but they do read content, they do consume websites within other applications. So when you're looking at actually mobile content, there is a bit of a disconnect there. But of 90%, 87% of mobile time spent in application does seem pretty significant for what people are actually doing with those devices now. So we really need to look at actually what are people doing with that time, and also how consistent can we expect that to be moving forward. And again, from the same ComScore report, one of the things that's really striking about this is even though people spend such a huge amount of time in a mobile application, it's the mobile web that's growing. More people are visiting the mobile web than ever before, and applications fairly static when it comes to actual acquisition of an audience. So not just the time spent, but actually who is spending that time. And you only need to look back for about 18 months to see in June 2014, about 6,000 people were browsing the mobile web, and we're up a huge amount compared to that now, to about 9,000. So literally a third more people browsing the mobile web, whereas apps have remained pretty static. So I think the best explanation of this that I've seen is from a guy called Luke who works at Google as a designer. He worked quite a bit on the Google Plus project. And the best explanation he's given is mobile web is for reach. If you're looking to acquire a new audience, if your main KPI as a business and as a marketing department is to get new customers, get new people in to experience what it is that you're offering, then mobile websites are probably still the best way to go. If you have a decent audience, if you have a big mailing list, if you have an engaged social audience, if you're putting out a lot of content already, a mobile app could be really useful for getting more out of that audience, engaging that particular audience a little bit more and increasing repeat custom. Both have their uses, obviously. So if you are going to take Luke's comment on face value and say, you're not probably going to increase the number of users of your brand just through mobile apps, but also you're not going to get the most out of those users just with a mobile website. There are a few anomalies though, so when you're looking at Google generally, you've got to accept that things change pretty quickly, and that also Google does whatever it wants. So when we're looking at reach, it's actually quite different with how apps are used in some certain localities. A really nice example is if you go to Greece, and it's a really good, useful trick actually to whatever it is that you're optimizing for, just search for that exact keyword or those set of keywords in other localities of Google. So this is just google.gr. And bingo, as an example, if you search in the UK results, you've got those 10 blue links for the most part. You've got hugely commercial sites with a real imperative to get people to sign up, and it's massively competitive. So you don't get the apps near the top. But if you look at Greece as a starting point, and plenty of other locations as well, you'll see that apps actually outrank all of the organic results. And this is just on an iOS device, but you can see straight away that there are some anomalies there. And it's the same for something like poker, which again is a hugely commercial keyword. You've got Zynga Poker right at the top there with 4 app results before you even get any organic results at all. Google does tend to test things in different countries in the same way that a lot of international businesses will choose a certain location for pushing out their tests. Google does that as well. So you'll see different results in different countries. It's always interesting to see how Google is using variety to its advantage and showing different kinds of results in other locations. The reason for this, and you can see that there are organic results below that and different kinds of results in the variety there. The reason for this is Google understands that people have a certain intent when they search for any particular keyword. Bingo or poker is very much I want to play. You know, if you search for bingo or you search for poker, Google can be 90% sure that you don't necessarily want the history of bingo or poker, but actually you just want to play that game. And you can see again in Greece different results at the same time. I'll just skip forward for a second. Searching for football as an example, you'll get informational queries at the top, informational results at the top of that query, simply because you don't want to play football on your mobile device. You want to know about it. You want to play football in real life. So it plays into this Google proposition that they've been rolling out over the past year of micro moments. And if you've ever read the Winning the Zero Moment of Truth white paper, and I recommend you do, it was released in 2011, and I think you can find it literally on zeromomentoftruth.com. Google originally started talking about what people want to use Google for, and what they were talking about is research. When people are buying a product, and the traditional model is they'll have a stimulus, maybe a TV advertisement or something like that, maybe they'll see some outdoor advertising, radio advertising, whatever it might be. They'll have a stimulus that encourages them to take action, and traditionally that means going into a store and experiencing a product, maybe a test drive of a car, or literally going to a shelf and picking up a product and experiencing it that way. What Google's really changed, and what Google's trying to show that it's changed since about 2011 with this study, is the whole research phase that goes into that beforehand. So back in 2011, Google suggested that people used about 10 resources, so that could be web pages, websites, um, or even offline resources before they'll make a purchase, and that had doubled since 2010. So we can assume that now you're looking at people using at least 20 or even 30 pieces of content or web pages before they will make a purchase. What this micro moments white paper and selection of information that Google's been publishing in the last year is trying to show is actually what those different research phases could take the form of. So you're looking at, back for a second, bingo or poker. That's very much I want to do. I clearly want to play bingo or poker when I search for that. And on a mobile device, you have a really heavy emphasis on those I want to go moments. You get a lot of local results in mobile because searching on a mobile, being out and about while you're searching, and Google being able to understand your location, very clear that you want to go somewhere and you don't necessarily want information for later. That information still ranks, of course, but it ranks a little bit lower than the immediate information that you might want to see right then. And that's what mobile has really changed with this macro moments proposition. And it's the reason why that 40% of search queries now show apps in the top 5, because so many of those search queries are very clearly fitting into that bracket of I want to do, or maybe I want to buy, or I want to know, depending on the type of app. But for the most part, apps are a clear indication that you want to do something. So football being I want to know search query, that's why you'll get apps in the top 5, but you're looking at informational apps. You're not looking at games. You're not looking at the same kind of apps that you'll see in bingo or poker. So really, reach depends on the query intent. If you're using an app to gain reach, if you're using an app to acquire a new audience, you have to be entirely certain that your app caters to that particular search query with the intent behind it. And there's a few, again, curveballs as far as Google's concerned, because it used to be pretty straightforward until this year, where you could reach users on a mobile web and funnel them straight into your app with something like an app interstitial. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen it, where you search for a keyword, you see a piece of content that you want to read, you click in Google, and the first thing you've got is a splash screen that directs you to the App Store or Google Play Store. So you can keep that app, keep the content there. But that's not really what people want. And as a result, Google has updated the mobile-friendly algorithm that rolled out on the 21st of April, so that if your mobile website is really heavy with these app interstitials, basically if your screen takes up, if your splash takes up too much of the screen and people can't see the content that they came for, but can literally just see that you want to funnel them into the App Store and keep you in an app, you no longer pass the mobile-friendly test. And as a result, you don't rank as well as you should do on mobile devices. So it's definitely worth taking off those app interstitials right now. This has been effective since the 1st of October, so if you've seen any drops in visibility on organic search on mobile devices since the 1st of October, this could be what's related to that. The big difference actually with mobile friendly when it rolled out, and there was a huge amount of press about it, that's going to say it's Mobilegeddon and the amount of search results are going to change drastically. But they didn't. The big change actually is the number of mobile apps that are listed in organic search results. What you see now is a result of that mobile-friendly algorithm with more and more apps in the top 5. So how can you drive app downloads when you can't simply just put it on a splash screen? You can do it from your website, and I'll talk a little bit about a couple of examples, real-life examples of companies, businesses driving app downloads from paid or owned media. This one is just IHG, who own Holiday Inn chain of hotels. They have a really good reward scheme, and plenty of businesses do things like reward points, etc. So this is just an email that they've sent out that basically, if you download the IHG app, you can earn bonus points towards a hotel stay. Really straightforward from their perspective. You might never use the app, you might not even need to, because it encourages you to get towards another hotel stay with that reward system they already have in place. It also means that not only are you getting email messages reminding you of IHG, but also you're potentially getting push notifications via an app to remind you about AHG as well. So it gives them twice as much real estate on your mobile phone without you having to go and search for a hotel. Twice as much real estate to remind you that they exist, which is obviously really useful for a business. And one more example of a different way of doing it entirely, TripAdvisor, obviously primarily known for reviews and being able to find locations and that sort of thing. On a mobile device, if you're just browsing TripAdvisor's mobile website, you can see all those reviews. Clearly, you want to go somewhere. It's that I want to go search intent that plays into that. So you can see the reviews, you can see the address and all that kind of thing. But if you want to engage more with TripAdvisor, if you want to write your own reviews, for example, you can't do that on a mobile website. TripAdvisor forces you to download the app. What the business is assuming there are a couple of things. You're engaged enough with TripAdvisor to write a review. You're clearly engaged enough to download an app. So they're betting that that audience is definitely going to be up for that. And secondly, if you write one review, they want to make it as easy as possible for you to write more and more reviews and provide them with that user-generated content consistently. And if you've got a mobile app there, if you keep using TripAdvisor, and again, they can send you push notifications to remind you, you've been here, why not write a review? Then that makes you a much more valuable customer for them than naturally if you just search for a particular restaurant, for example, and been given a big splash screen to download the app. That's not what you want. So obviously there are plenty of other owned and paid media campaigns that you might be running, things like above the line advertising, whether that's outdoor advertising, whether that's radio, or whether that's TV advertising. There's been a trend in recent years where every single TV advertisement has to use a hashtag, which is a little bit ridiculous because people don't tend to tweet using a hashtag about a brand just because they've seen an advertisement. And if you've ever clicked on one of those hashtags, you'll know that. You'll get a little bit of conversation for a short period of time from a few people, mostly people who are just complimenting your advertisement. So you can see why ad agencies do it. But what it's really not useful for as well is it's Twitter's audience. If you're driving people to a hashtag, you're not driving people to your property, and there's no real reason for them to ever engage with you again. So why not, instead of using a hashtag, for example, if you're launching a mobile application, ask people to search for that app. Search for us on Play Store or the iOS App Store, or even just put those logos on your screen when you're putting your brand name up there to try and get the name out there that not only are you a business that does whatever it is that you just advertised, but also you have an app that makes it nice and easy for people to do that as well. So moving on to the App Store itself, and by App Store I mean obviously the iOS App Store as well as the Android Play Store. How do you get downloads from there? App Store optimization is not actually too dissimilar from SEO in a lot of senses. There are fairly straightforward ranking factors, what kind of information you have to fill in to become relevant and to demonstrate to the powers that be, whether that's Apple or Google, that you are a quality result as well. And just like SEO, it's a combination of relevance and quality. The title's really important. In some app stores like Google's App Store, the description's really important, but you can't use keywords, and it's exactly like Meta Robots keywords no longer being useful on a website, but keywords are always extremely useful for iOS, so it's just about understanding the differences between those two. I'm going to pick out one or two and talk a little bit more about them in a second. So those keywords, for example, one of the big changes in SEO over the past 2 years, certainly since Hummingbird was rolled out in 2013 around August time, one of the big changes has been the prevalence of long-tail search queries and why they're really the big opportunity for most businesses now, regardless of whether you're a startup or whether you are a massive business. It's all about long-tail. Effectively, the big change there is where you once used to want to rank for something like car insurance as an example, you would throw a load of keyword links to your car insurance page, and we're talking 5 or 10 years ago now, and naturally you'll rank for all of those long tail search queries. What's really different now is you have to rank for those long tail search queries if you want to rank for car insurance, if you want to rank for those big keywords. The App Store is quite different because people don't search for long tail on the App Store at all, and there's no real reason to assume that they ever will do that. The App Store is a big opportunity to include those big head keywords, those short tail, high search volume, high competition keywords. And you can use several tools like Sensor Tower or App Annie, are probably two of my preferred ones, to find search volumes in the App Store and find out what those big keywords are. When it comes to the title, it's about being succinct, it's about being brief, including your big keyword and your brand, really. Publisher also is pretty important as well. So publisher is literally who's putting the app onto the App Store. Don't let your agency do this. Don't let your agency name be the publisher of your application. It's really important that your brand is seen to put out that app. Basically, people aren't going to download it unless they know it's by you. So that's a trust signal in itself. Also, if you're going to build more apps, if you're going to consistently push out apps, it's really important to make sure that the same publisher is consistent across all of those experiences. You're literally rewarded in both of the app stores for consistently building great apps. And another consideration as well is publisher is your brand. If you do spam tactics, and manipulation does work in the App Store just like manipulation still works in Google, you're still risking being kicked out. And when you're looking at the App Store, or when you're particularly looking at Android's Play Store, you're representing your brand. If you get kicked out of the Play Store, there's every chance that Google can follow IP addresses, can follow your brand name, can see that your app is linked to your website, and will completely kick you out of Google organic search results as well. So don't do it, basically. When it comes to reviews, as an example, positive ratings and reviews influence App Store rankings, not just the positivity overall, so the actual quality of the reviews, the more stars the better, obviously, but also how quickly you get those reviews. If you're providing a good enough experience that tens or hundreds of people want to review your app really as soon as they've downloaded it, then clearly you're doing something right, and that's going to influence your ranking in the App Store. And as a coincidence, ratings and reviews, star ratings, will probably influence Google's organic search rankings as well soon. Google wants to rank the best businesses. It's as simple as that. So Google, exactly in the same way that quality score works on PPC, Google wants to be sure that whoever it's sending search traffic to is clearly going to make the best use of that search traffic, provide a great user experience, provide great customer service, and not make people search Google again. So the best data they have for that right now is star ratings from tools like FIFO or Trustpilot, or star ratings that you've marked up yourself on your website. They will probably influence search rankings in the near future, and will certainly influence search rankings overall in the distant future. And moving back onto that idea of actually what we need here is speed. More ratings faster is great. It's all about downloads and the frequency of downloads in the App Store and the Play Store as well. The faster you get downloaded, the more popular you must be, and just like in Google, popularity is king here. Popularity is what gets you ranked higher. So it's really important to get people to download your app as soon as it comes out in the greatest numbers. So it's really important to make sure that if you're going to launch an app, you don't just launch it and then tell your PR team and your SEO team and your social media team and everyone else involved in activation or promotion that it's been pushed out. It's vitally important that you tell those teams straight away as soon as it's in the planning phase. You keep them up to date with when this app's going to be pushed out, so that they can do all of the things that they do for your website ready for your app as well. You've got to bear in mind that if you mess it up, the App Store for iOS takes 2 weeks to approve changes. So if you fail to notify your SEO team that the app's going live, and they tell you that you've missed out your keywords, or you've not optimized the listing properly, or you're not including images, or whatever it might be that means you've not done it right, it's going to take 2 weeks to push that change back live on the App Store, and you're going to lose all of that momentum. So another reason why you need to keep SEO up to date straight away. There is another side to this, that updating apps frequently does improve rankings, which is why when you see in the App Store the changes that have been made, and sometimes it just says something like bug fixes. More frequent changes are really positive, but you still have to get that popularity to begin with. So to begin with, if you're going to do anything like social promotion using Facebook or Twitter, paid Facebook or Twitter advertising, if you're going to use PPC to drive app downloads, if you have a budget set out of a period of time, maybe 3 months or 6 months or something like that, I would strongly suggest front-loading that budget. I would spend more in the first week than you're probably going to spend for the rest of the campaign. The important thing is to get it as high up the App Store rankings as it possibly can be, because naturally it will stay there once it's there. There's no point trying to consistently keep it in 10th if you can get it to second on its own, spending the same budget, and then watch it stay there. If you're going to use something like app reviews as a tactic for potentially getting links to your app or whatever it might be, literally getting attention for your app, again, it's important to keep your PR team in the loop to begin with, because they need to line up the bloggers, they need to line up the journalists in advance of the app going live so that they can push that out all at once. And on the links front, it's really important to remember that Apple doesn't use links for App Store rankings. Apple doesn't have the access to PageRank. It doesn't have access to the link graph that Google does, so it's not going to make any difference for Apple at all. You don't necessarily need to link to the app itself. A lot of the time when you're building links from a Google perspective, what's really important here is that actually you're just getting people to download it. You're getting people to see it, to read about it, to trust it, and go to the actual result. On the front of planning your launch date, yes, it's really important to plan it carefully from the perspective of making sure that all of your teams are available, but it's also really important to consider seasonality, and that's not just seasonality in terms of your market, but actually seasonality in terms of the mobile market as well. So this is just a Google Trends graph for searches for iPhone, and as you can see, whenever a new iPhone is about to be launched or is being launched, there are huge spikes in attention from people searching for those iPhone results. What's really important to remember is that whenever the spike is high, the competition is high. If you're pushing out a new app at that time, so is everyone else. You're competing against so many people who are not just doing apps who are in your industry, but who are doing apps in general and want to get into that top 100. So it's really important that you choose your moment carefully when the competition is only from your competitors and not from everyone else who wants to build a mobile app. And that goes for seasonality from your industry, but also seasonality for mobile. You can also drive app downloads from other areas. So social media is a really good one because you've got to remember that Facebook and Twitter are mobile first. 80% of Twitter's audience, as an example, you've got 300 million active users there. 80% of that is on mobile, so guaranteed to be a potential audience for you. You're not necessarily reaching people who are at home on a desktop computer and might download it later, but who are definitely up for it. So this is just an example from Ladbrokes, one of our clients on the casino site, and it's literally a case of optimizing a Twitter card in the same way as normal with an install button. What you've got to remember about this is, although Twitter is very much informational, Twitter is for people who want to know things and not necessarily for people who want to play things, so that's kind of counterintuitive to what I was talking about before. You've got to remember that actually not everyone is doing this. So even though user has not displayed a clear intent that they want to play a mobile app, download a mobile app, it also means that not everyone is pushing out a mobile app at that time, and you've got a much better chance of being noticed, of being seen, and people actually downloading your app because they might just be interested. So that old advertising model of just hoping that people catch you still works in channels like Twitter, where people aren't necessarily expecting to see a huge choice of people doing the same thing. If you can reach them there, it's definitely a positive thing. And Twitter's really helpfully put together what you would need to do this. So this is just on twitter.com. I think it's on the developers section. And again, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty much like actually an app store listing where you really need to have a picture, you need to have your app name, star ratings, and the usual kind of install button and that kind of thing. So it's not too dissimilar to writing ad copy for a PPC listing, as an example. And on that front, you can obviously, I'm getting to this, drive app downloads from search engines. So here's another example of a client with a PPC listing that's got that app extension on there. It's really useful because it improves CTR with a picture. So you're getting noticed as a brand a lot more in that sense by having that app install card there. But the downside is clearly it pushes your M.dot website or your responsive website further down the page. There's potentially scroll there, and this is a screenshot from an iPhone 6s, so it's larger. Typically, users won't be able to see your actual organic listing without the app card at the top there. So it's a bit of a trade-off in that sense, and clearly if someone downloads an app, they might not actually go to your M.dot website as well. So it's always worth bearing in mind that if you're going to launch something like this, you should probably expect to see a bit of a tail off in organic traffic on your M.dot website as well. But the advantage, of course, is that there's not many opportunities to get your logo in search results anymore without authorship, as an example. There's not many times that you can get a picture there and get a lot of attention on your listing, so it's one way to do that. I've literally stolen this from Distilled, which is great, and just a couple of checklists. So first, Android app indexing. The key one there is deep linking, and we'll come on to that in a second. But basically, what do you need to do to make sure that your app is indexed in Android? The ones that we're going to talk about in a little more detail in a second are deep linking and Search Console. The other ones are kind of nice to haves, but it's definitely worth looking at this particular checklist or any Android app listing checklist. The iOS checklist is pretty similar. Universal links and deep links aren't too different, and also Google is now indexing iOS apps as well. So when we're talking about adding your app to Search Console, reasons why we would do this, a couple really. It shows impressions, which is massively useful, how many people are potentially seeing your app. Because you can see where it appears in terms of position, and you can also see click-through rate, it means you can estimate how much traffic each position is worth to you and put a business case for something like more budget into pushing your app. You can even forecast where you think your app will be if you're going to get that budget. So you can estimate much more accurately what your app is going to return to you in terms of actual traffic. And another really useful aspect of it is you can fetch your app as Google, and you can see what Google sees. So you can see just an example of a deep link there on that fetched URI. It's pretty similar to an HTTP link, but with Android app at the beginning. Otherwise, it works pretty similarly to a link, and it's literally just choosing an individual page within an app and making sure that you're linking to it in this way. Another interesting point, of course, is a separate bot. It's not just Googlebot that crawls over your desktop website or even Googlebot that crawls over your mobile website. Google has a specific bot that works in a different way for apps, for Android apps, now iOS apps. So you can expect to see different issues cropping up. And at the bottom of the page, you can see what potentially is causing the problems with your app when it comes to indexing. So it's really useful to add it to Search Console and link it to your website that way. When it comes to deep linking, I'm not going to explain it in any detail at all today because it's quite a complicated subject. But what I would say is the best guide I've seen on this is on DeepCrawl's website. If you just search for app deep linking for beginners as a term, or if you download these slides from SlideShare later on, this is a link, so you can see it on DeepCrawl's website. I didn't write it, and I don't work for DeepCrawl, but it's definitely the best guide I've seen, so it's worth having a look at that. It really explains deep linking in much easier way than I could right now. A couple of stats that are really quite important to bear in mind. So about 2/3 of installed apps are never used, and that's obviously a wasted opportunity. People download apps as soon as they get a new mobile phone. People download apps because they're pushed to from those examples earlier, like Holiday Inn, where you get a bonus point or something for downloading that app. You've got to remember that the apps are there, and search indexing, SEO for apps in general, it reminds you that you exist, basically. So if I'm a flights operator, if I'm EasyJet or Ryanair or someone like that, and I have an app, and I've encouraged someone to download it. So the airlines like Ryanair do a really cool thing with their app where you can use your boarding card only if you have the app. So you can't just download the PDF and show people and scan it that way. It works, it physically works, but Ryanair have made it so that you have to download the mobile app to use your phone as a boarding card. So they're guaranteed that you are a Ryanair customer who has that app. When you then search for flights, Ryanair want to be showing up there. If you've already flown with them before, you've got a little bit of brand loyalty perhaps. If you're searching for flights the next time you want to go somewhere, you want your app to be indexed there. You want to get traffic back into your app directly from search results instead of people going to Skyscanner or going to cheap flights or a competitive site. You've already built up that brand loyalty. Someone has already experienced your brand as an offering. So this is a really good way to build up repeat custom, and making sure that your index definitely does that. Of course, it does come down to reach as well, and you can index content from apps you haven't installed now. So not too long ago, about 18 months, but it was kept very quiet at the time, Google purchased a startup called Agawi, which originally it was a mobile gaming company, so it allowed people to play games on their mobile phones directly from apps without having to install the app first. If you play a lot of games, you might not have a lot of memory on your mobile, so it's definitely a useful proposition. What Google are using it for is it means that you can use apps in the same way that you would use a mobile website. Google is pushing businesses to provide a deeper, richer experience on a mobile app, providing more content, more informational pages in an app, and trying to get them indexed in Google that way, rather than simply just providing a booking function on an app and having all of the information somewhere else on a mobile website. So Google has already started rolling this out. This has probably been happening for the last month or so, but you're now starting to see indexed apps that aren't on your mobile phone at all. So that's where this is going, really. Apps are going to be bigger and bigger for reach. So the way things are now, and the graphs that I was showing from ComScore at the beginning, which are applicable up until June 2015, they're still applicable, but moving forwards, you're going to expect to see more and more people being reached, people who are growing straight into apps rather than going via a mobile website into an app. So when it comes to choosing an option, it's not changed all that much. Even though you can get a mobile application indexed, it's not really useful for a brand. It's not really going to be efficient for a company to just have a mobile app. You're still going to need a mobile website. So we've not got to a stage yet where it's and or. So you can't exist just with a mobile app without a mobile website, but you can have both or just a mobile website. So we've not come all the way yet as far as apps go. It's going to get bigger, but even with app indexing, the adoption isn't quite there yet to make it feasible. And that's really the key takeaway as far as whether or not you should have an app. It's not about how much time people spend on apps. It's not about how many apps there are or how competitive the App Store is. It's looking at your direct competitors, who has an app, but more importantly, who's indexed it, who is getting that repeat custom from their applications. And whether you're not Ryanair, for example, you're EasyJet, who may not have an app installed and indexed, if someone searches for flights and you've got that app there, you can potentially drive people into that regardless of whether they've used you or not before. So the final point I'd leave you with is, because of where we are with this market, because it's getting bigger and bigger, but it's not quite mature, I suspect that the ROI on building an app is not going to be ever this high again. You can do some really cheap things with apps as well. So PhoneGap is a really cool tool that will allow you to just shrink a mobile responsive website into an app. You've got to change bits and pieces to get it into the App Store, but actually you don't necessarily need to pay a development company to build you an app. if you already have a really good experience on mobile. So PhoneGap is a tool that does that, and Cordova is another one. There are definitely ways to do that without really breaking the bank. And I'd encourage you to experiment. If you see an opportunity to act quickly and get an app out there when no one else does, you should definitely do that. So thank you very much for listening. My name is Stephen Kenwright. I'm Director of Search at Branded3. Happy to take any questions on here, or you can see my Twitter account at the bottom. It's at Steve Kenwright. You can already see these slides on SlideShare as well. So if you just want to download the slides, hopefully there's something useful in there for you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Steven. It's been most interesting. I'm still new in the apps business, so I did have a lot to learn myself. Let me double check if people have questions. I see no raised hand so far. Do you see anything in the chat box? I think not.
No.
Guys, don't be shy, yeah? We're here to learn and to spread and to share our ideas. Anyone? Anyone? Well, anyway, in each case, like Stephen mentioned, you can always reach him via Twitter or Facebook, or even directly maybe on the website of Branded. If not, you can go through SEOmonitor, as I'm always happy to help. Feel free to ask me any questions you might have, and I'll transmit them forward to Stephen. Yeah, no. I think somebody raised their hands, but no longer. Maybe maybe they got their questions cleared in the end. Oh, okay. Well, nonetheless, thank you again very much for being tonight with us and taking your time to share your conclusions when it came to mobile apps versus mobile web. We're gonna do post with the recording of this webinar, so people will definitely get the chance to see it, even if they couldn't be live listening to it today. It was very nice working with you. Hopefully, we're gonna see each other at the other events in the future. And
Absolutely.
keep up the great work that you're doing back there, because we're big fans, and hopefully you guys are gonna keep continuing bringing some delight into the domain.
Hope so. Thank you very much for it.
Well, thank you. Have a lovely evening, and thanks for everybody who's been here listening to our webinar. Since this is our last webinar this year, I'm going to wish everybody happy holidays. Remember to enjoy this vacation and come back full with energy for the year to come. Bye, and see you next year.
Bye, guys.